this is Caroline, and this is One Big Pile of Bricks, and today we have our guest, Jason Geary. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for joining us. How's things?
Yeah, good. We're out of lockdown now. You know, I'm living with a bit of people anxiety. You know, you guys are some of the first people I've seen since.
Yeah, it's been a bit crazy, right?
Yeah, so it's great. I still don't know what to do. I get to the end of my driveway and go, all right, how far can I go now? And the answer is limitless. I can go wherever I want to.
You can now, right?
Oh, you know what happened to me? I was actually with Maddie the other day, and we're sitting in the car. We went to get pizza. We pulled up to get the pizza, and I said to her, "Oh, you go in. I'll wait here." And then later she came back and I had to apologise. And I said...
Because it was really late. It was like 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, it was
8 or 9. It was dark. It was dark outside, right?
You're sending her down dark alleyways.
I'm doing the things that Rick and I would do normally, you know, like minimize exposure.
Because, you know, we're like around where they live.
Yeah.
Some areas, not the greatest.
Yeah, it's a little dodgy.
Yeah,
sometimes late at night, we all walk those paths.
That's exactly right. Because every time we go there, we're like, oh where are we going?
Yeah, but I think we're all doing funny little things that were normal during lockdown, and now we're just having to relearn, you know, we can do things. We can go back to some
You must be pretty
normality.
excited that normality comedy shows, you can get back into the circuit doing your usual stuff.
Yeah, like that's the thing. We were really lucky that we had COVID zero during the comedy festival.
Yeah.
But that was really the last time I did any kind of shows. Since then, cancellation after cancellation after cancellation. And because it's been so it's kind of skatey getting back into things, nothing is planned in the immediate future either. So I think maybe I'll get back into monthly shows maybe November, December. But it's still, I've got nothing on the books. Like it's... The thing is that's really hard is sports opening up, everything else is opening up, and now we've got finally some direction about how many people we can have in a room to do comedy to.
Yeah, I think too, the one thing that I've been very vocal about, and one thing that's hurt me the most and upset me the most being a business owner, is that everyone focuses on sport, and sport's great, and I get it, and all this stuff. But when there's bushfires or something goes wrong, it's the arts community that steps up and raises hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But the sport, like, you're just kicking around a ball. You don't even come visit kids. Like, I just don't understand this fixation that the government had on sports priority. Like, I just can't wrap my head around it.
Thinking we started on the government.
That's exactly right.
However,
the government don't appreciate the arts just as much as sport.
You were very lucky. You did get an arts grant.
I did get an arts grant. I in the very first lockdown from the city of Melbourne, when they realised, because our work went first. Like our work was like, so we've got to shut stuff down, and kind of like everything else, we were the first to go, and we're going to be the last ones to open up. So the city of Melbourne provided some grants for artists, and they were like, "What have you got?" And I went, "I'd love to write a book. If I'm going to be locked down, I'll write a book." And so I did. I applied to write a book of short stories about Melbourne.
Oh, cool.
And magical realism, which is kind of magic mixed with everyday life.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so I wrote 6 stories and published the book. In the first year of lockdown, which was great because the first, it was a 6-month grant, and the first 2 months I was like, I'll think about the book and play some video games, and then I'll write the book. It can't be that hard writing a book, right? Because I write a lot. I've written a lot for TV. I've written a lot for other stuff, and so. But then I started on the stories. I was like, okay, and then there was a good 2 months of just like cramming, and if I had have spread it out over the whole period, lessons learned, I would have been much more better for it, I think. But the book I'm really proud of, and the stories came out really, really well.
So with the book, can they buy it from your website? Where can they buy it?
Yeah, you can buy it from my website. I'd say look it up on Facebook. There'll be a link there. It's called Lost and Found.
Oh, cool.
Magical Stories from Melbourne. And like one of the stories is about a creature who's invisible that you can't see that sits with you on the steps of Flinders Street Station. Yeah. So when you are alone there or waiting for someone, it just comes and kind of puts its arm around you, makes you feel like, all right, I kind of. And I think everyone's had that experience if you've lived in Melbourne for long enough of waiting around on the squares, on the stairs of Flinders Street. So I came up with this character called Snugs, who's like this big giant pink pink fuzzy thing who just comes and kind of sits next to you. And a friend of mine, Liam Amor, did not animation, illustration for all the books.
Cool, that's awesome.
And it's really well. So I was really proud.
It's really good that you can support your friends. Like I think that's been like Caroline and I try to do obviously with Jimmy and Maddie with they're doing all their lockdown. Like during lockdown, they're doing all their shows and stuff on their YouTube and all this sort of stuff. I think if you're in a position to help and share and you have the market, or the audience, or, like if you can do it, you just do it.
Well, as soon as I got that grant, I was like, great, I can pay one of my friends to do some stuff. And he was in the same situation, of course.
I just think it's sad. Like, I just think it's hard not to go on a government rant, everyone who's in business or in arts or anyone that's been majorly affected by everything that's been happening in the last couple of years. But I just think the one thing we can all learn is that the government's had its priorities wrong in the first place. Everything's been kind of scattered. Yeah. There's been no kind of plan. It's just, I don't know. I find it incredibly hard because most of our friends are artists.
Yeah.
Either if they're working on TV or behind the scenes or, doing whatever they're doing, and everyone is just hurting. It just blows me away that the Australian government could turn their back on the people that pay everyone's wages effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky that I've, and I appreciate the assistance that I've got, and I would have rather, I was lucky enough to get JobKeeper because my other business is called Spark Teamwork, and what we do is we take improv principles into businesses, and we teach.
That's awesome.
We teach business people about active listening, about empathy, about spontaneity, and of course we can't do that either. Because there's no conferences anymore. There's no they don't gather to train anymore. We can do that a little bit online and transition a little bit, but our business was, fly to the Gold Coast for their conference weekend, do a session in the morning, do a session in the afternoon. So even though I'm arts, I was also an arts business, and that still hasn't come back either. Because
I saw
everyone's workforce has changed dramatically.
There's a few people I know that had entertainment, I don't know what they call them, like big event entertainment businesses that have just folded.
Event management.
That's what I was looking for. It's just crazy. I feel sad, but it's like in the same way, it's like everyone is hurting and we're all bearing the brunt of everything that's happened over the last 2 years. I'm just grateful we're one of the only few countries that's in a position where now, obviously going, we're in the new year and everything's going to start returning to some sort of normality again.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what that normal's going to be as well.
I would like to, when the world is safe, to go back overseas. Like you used to travel everywhere.
I have, for your audience, I guess, they might know me from TV. Like I do, I've been on TV a bunch of different TV shows. Utopia. I got my break with the Micallef program on the ABC in the late 90s.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, Sean Micallef was always a mentor of mine.
Awesome.
And myself and the guy who did the illustrations for my book, we formed a duo just out of uni doing sketch comedy on stage, and we did the Raw comedy competition on Triple J. And we won the state final for Victoria, and we went to the national final, and we didn't win that, but we were the only people doing sketch comedy there. And Sean was a judge, and one of the producers for the show was a judge. And even though we didn't win, the Monday after that happened, we get a call from the ABC saying, we'd love you to come and be a part of our show.
What a great start.
What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, and I'd grown up watching Sean on Fast Forward and stuff like that, and he was a hero of mine, and I was like, yes, please. So that first season, we were literally extras, dog bodies, just going around. Second season, they started asking us to write stuff. We started getting bigger parts.
Dude, that's awesome.
You did the hard work at the start. You showed that you were committed.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to just be writing at the start. You were willing to do everything else.
Oh man, anything. And there was so much to learn. And Sean taught me so much in that 3-year period. And then I went with him. We did a sitcom at the ABC. Called Welcher and Welcher, which was one of his a sitcom that he did. And then I did a show on Channel 9 with him, which was a Tonight Show, which lasted 13 weeks, and it was like the anti-Tonight Show. I don't know if you recall. It was called Micallef Tonight.
I actually remember it. Because back then, obviously the world was a much smaller place. The internet wasn't as big as it is now, obviously. But I remember, and obviously he's one of the majors that you remember from the old school days, Fast Forward, all that sort of stuff. What an amazing opportunity pretty much straight out of uni.
Oh, yeah, straight onto it. And that led to me working with Roving and doing Skithouse and a bunch of other sketch comedy at the time as well. Micallef Tonight was great because I just got to do really, really strange things. Like the Arctic Monkeys came on to play, right? Mm-hmm. So you get these big bands in and you're like, hey, man, how are you? And like, cool. And I'm like, look, I'm just going to be sitting to the side of you in a gorilla suit dressed as Abraham Lincoln, and halfway through your song, I'm going to get assassinated. Is that okay with you? All right, cool. So then I'm sitting like with the Arctic Monkeys, like ding, 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 ding. I'm in a monkey suit.
We're going to look that clip up now.
I know, I'm going to have to find the clip, right?
Oh, man, it's like there was another odd one where I was dressed as a mummy for a bit, but I also had to do some voiceover stuff. So I was up in the box, and if anyone grew up on a Hey 8 Saturday, it's John Blackman's little box that he used to sit in. So I was up in the voice box next to the control room, and Thorpe was a guest as well, and he had to do some voice work as well. And so me dressed completely as a mummy, skin flaps hanging off, stuff like that, and Ian Thorpe had to be in this tiny box for like 15 minutes.
He's a tall dude as well.
He's a massive unit, you know? And so we're squished in this box, making the most awkward small talk for like 15 minutes. It was just divine. And I saw him years later and he remembered. And
seriously? That's awesome.
Yeah. We both laughed about it. It was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. You know, like, I think a lot of people don't realize that they might only see you in commercial stuff once or twice, but they don't realize how much you've actually done.
I mean, I guess I've been a journeyman. I started in the early kind of noughties, late 90s on TV, and the last bit of TV I did was just before lockdown. I did an episode of How to Stay Married, Pete.
Cool,
Pete's
yeah.
So, and I probably get 1, 2, 3 shows a year. You know, I've done Utopia. I've done a bunch of different comedy things.
Have you been paying attention? That's another one you've been on.
And I did one called Slideshow, which was a heap of fun, and that was like an improvised TV show. It's kind of like a game show, and in the end, the whole set would tilt like 45 degrees, and the camera would tilt as well. So when you're watching on TV, it looked normal, but we were having to improvise on this incline.
Wow.
So you'd like fall down the bottom of the set, like smash yourself all over it. It was hilarious.
What an amazing experience. Oh, well, yeah. Well,
you sign a waiver for that.
That's exactly right. But that's amazing. Like, wow. It just blows my mind that you've been involved in so many things.
I know it kind of blows my mind as well, and I have to remind myself quite often, and I think this is probably good advice for people as well if they're watching this, because they know that I've been doing things for a while, that I have to remind myself that anyone coming into the business would look at my career and go, that's an amazing career, you know, and be envious of it and stuff like that, and but you know, here I am sitting around twiddling my thumbs, going, "All right, come on, what's next?" You know, trying to generate stuff, and in those moments, I have to go, "No, it's still happening." And the one thing you know in this business, that there's ebbs and flows all the time. And so there's a consistent time. There's a new generation of comedians coming through now, which has been really fun to work with them. Both on writing, working with ideas, preparing grants, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So it's you know, it's nice to have moved or to start to embrace a mentor role as well.
And you've also done a lot of commercial work, so ad work, right?
Yes, a lot of ad work. I did my first ad again around the late 90s. I've done ads for Triple M. I've done ads for chainsaws. I've done ads for a whole bunch of stuff. But I was lucky enough to get an iSelect gig that was the one that really that kind of put me on the map. Before iSelect, people would recognize me, and I'd know that the type of people who recognized me were comedy people, because they'd recognize me from comedy. Right? So they'd come up and go, "I saw you on this. I love that gag," and do that. And then once I started being on the iSelect ads, everyone started recognizing me, like, all the time.
That's how we actually first met you at the
Yeah.
Rob Melbourne show.
It was your voice. For me, it was your voice. For Rick, it was your face. So Explain what happened.
From what I remember, like it was one of our first big events that actually paid for our very first store. We're at the Royal Melbourne Show. We won Best Exhibit Award.
Nice.
We did.
We were there, and you were there with your daughter at the time, and she was quite young. Where now, obviously it's her birthday tomorrow, so things are different. So but it was. We met you, and I was like, "Oh, you're the dude from iSelect."
That guy, look at that guy. I said, "Yeah." I don't recognise faces that well. Yeah. Years later, he goes, "That's the guy from iSelect," and then you started speaking. Oh yeah, that's the guy.
I hope I wasn't a jerk. Was I a jerk? I hope
no,
I wasn't
lovely.
You know the typical thing that it happens to me, and it is when people you're like, oh hey, it's the you've been recognised 100 times.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, how you doing?
There was a point probably later on, and I think that was earlier on, but there was a point later on that if I was with my family, I mean, I think it was different. It'd be different because we're in your store and you recognise and all that kind of stuff. But there were times where I had to tell people can you not right now?
That bad?
I'm here with my family. They just come up and stick their phones in your face and stuff like that.
Imagine eating a meal, I don't know, at a pub or whatever. Yeah. I was like, hey mate,
it was. I didn't mind saying hi to people or talking to people, and most of the time people would just kind of look at me and go,
I know you.
Did I go to school with you or something? And for the first little bit, which I probably was around there as well, I go, no, I didn't like saying, you know me from TV. But in the end, it just became the easiest thing to do rather than to spend the energy playing it down.
I don't remember anything else.
I don't remember anything negative. You wouldn't be here if we did.
Oh, yeah.
I think too, back then it was pre-social media, really. It wasn't really in your face, right?
Yeah.
And I think back then it would have been a bit different. I think in the world now, it's hard to escape it because if you're in an advert, you're on everything. You're on every social media platform on the planet.
Well, and we did radio like no one's business. I was in a radio studio every 2 weeks with fresh ads.
Really? Yeah. Wow, because you had done that for 5 years?
Yeah, 5, almost 6 years.
And you travelled a bit for it, right?
Yeah, we did this one ad campaign, and it was amazing. It was this Qantas click and thing where your points could get you here, and you had to click.
Wow.
And then we'd land in a different place, right? And they were talking about doing it on green screen, and I was like, cool. And then they went, no, we're going. And so in 2 weeks, we started in Melbourne, we flew to Bali, we shot for 4 days in Bali, and that doubled as Japan as well. So we shot at sunset on a beach. We were up in mountain resorts. We were it was insane. And then at the end of that, the director was a crazy foodie, right? So the crew hooked him up with this amazing restaurant. And so at the end of that shooting week, or shooting days, we'd arrive the next day, and then we'd shoot for 2 days. Then we'd pack up and have a dinner. Then we move on to the next thing. And this happened. We went from Bali to Bangkok. We shot in Bangkok. We shot at a night market in Bangkok. Then we went to Istanbul. We shot on the roof of the Grand Bazaar.
Wow.
And at the Blue Mosque.
Oh my God.
Insane. We just drive, shoot, hop back in the van. It was insane. And then we finished in Paris.
Oh, man. What an amazing experience.
In Paris. And so... and it was just it was a crazy 2 weeks because that little 4-day thing would happen in different places. So I went to some amazing restaurants in each of these things because the director was a crazy foodie, and it was all on the company, and it was the best gig I'll ever have. It was insane.
Well, the social part of it as well.
Oh yeah, and you're it was just that crew. So I'm still in touch with a lot of the people.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good.
From that trip, just because the editor would be stuck. Poor guy was stuck in the hotel room the whole time editing live.
Oh, what a poor dude.
When we're in Bangkok, he was editing Bali,
Yeah.
And we'd bring him back food and stuff like that. But
I wonder with the world returning to normal if you could get the gig again.
I don't know. I don't know how that particular company is faring at the moment, and I'm not paid to, so I don't know.
That's exactly right.
But look, it was a great gig, and it gifted me a lot of things. Least of all, that idea of putting me front and center a lot. So I got a lot of gigs at the time, just because people think of you.
And if you're in your face all the time, right?
Yeah, and so that cool. kind of flowed onto other gigs that work both often on TV that were just people going, oh, I saw that, can we get that guy? And that kind of helped with our company as well.
It just blows me away how much a company, I always assumed those ads, like, there's another ad, I don't know if she still does it, the Trivago ad, like, I always assumed they'd just film it in front of a green screen and just be like, oh, let's change the setting, like, but to pick you up and transport you.
Oh, yeah, it was insane. And, I mean, a lot of the shoots that we did were big shoots at studios. They'd always, build an office set or shoot it in the office. The very first one we did was a week in Sydney, and they'd rented 2 floors of a office building where one floor was production and one floor was the set.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone expected it to go, like, my initial contract was for 12 months, and I don't think anyone expected it to go for 6 years, and I certainly didn't, and I was every time I signed on the line again, I was thrilled. And I think that was a great combination between it being the right time, the right synergy between the creatives. I was allowed to improvise a lot on set.
Wow, that's cool.
A lot of the time, by the end of the 6 years, they wouldn't even write the gags. They would just write the stuff, and I'd improvise the gags, and they'd pick the gags in there. So I ended up getting a writing credit for the last couple of years as well, just because I'd improvised so much that they'd often use the improvised stuff in the final
that
ads.
Particular company's not doing so well, so they might need you back.
I know. Yeah, I should go back and say, hey, guys.
Hey. But charge double now because like you got much more experience.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I guess that's one of the fortunate things. You're not coming into your career, you've done a lot in the past. So having this couple of years sort of break or a lull won't be necessarily such a negative thing for you because you do have the contacts already.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing that, again, I've got to keep reminding myself about, because this business is cyclical. You can get a great gig, and the great gig lasts 6 months, and then you're out of work again. And you've got all those new contacts and stuff like that, but they're all struggling to get gigs as well. And so it's learning to be okay with going back to square one over and over again. And it's never the same square one, but it feels like it. You've got all those new contacts. You've got a bit more work underneath you. You've got work that you can show. And so it's easy to get through those doors. But you still got to get on board again for the next project, or create the next project yourself. So it's this complete kind of reset. And that was a nice 6-year stint, but generally with any TV, that goes for 6 months.
I think that's why you're so memorable as well, because you're on such one thing for such a big chunk of time. Yeah. And you're even having some kids that have grown up in that period of time. It's like, oh, that's the guy. Like, and, normal TV, and you're watching whatever, and the ads were on all the time, you're going to be like, oh, there he is. Where now, with the ever-changing environment of so much social media, TV in particular is obviously struggling because they can't pin, it's trying to get that attention. And even with social media, attention's so hard to grab to be different without, shaking your booty on camera or whatever. Like, you can't.
Well, when you've got TikToks and you scroll.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the environment is so different now. They rarely make sketch comedy anymore.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. Like,
they make reality. That's where the budget from sketch comedy's gone. I did Skithouse, which was one of the last.
I remember Skithouse.
It was great fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But it was one of the last sketch comedy kind of half hours that they've done on Channel 10. They've done a couple here and there, but nothing in the last 10 years.
It's the ABC that seems to focus on that, because Sheila Paquala just finished her run on her show. Yeah. So it looks like their main.
But that's still not sketch. That's narrative stuff. I mean, when you think about, fast forward that traditional comedy of thing, that's all moved to streaming stuff now.
Yeah, that is true. But also, do you think it's hard doing comedy without upsetting somebody now?
I think it is, but you've got to try to, like, it's always been changing. Yeah. Right. So when I was doing comedy in the 90s, it was easy to look back at 80s comedy and go, how crazy and sexist is that, right? And so,
even early.
Yeah, and it's always changing, it's always evolving. So all you can do is try to punch up always.
Yeah.
So for your audience, what we mean about punching up is to take out the institutions that are in, or laugh at the institutions that are in control at the time. So you're not necessarily bullying by punching down on any different someone's demographic or just because they're different in this way or that way. That's what we call punching down. And punching down is never been looked well upon from inside the comedy business. But now in particularly, if you were punching down 10 years ago and someone finds that tweet comes to life again and you've got to answer for it. So there's a whole another level of accountability now. Like there are some sketches that I can't watch because they were wrong, but they were filmed 25 years ago.
And that's the thing I find, especially with like Paul Hogan and stuff, like some of his stuff resurfaces because obviously, TikTok, there's always those accounts that copy old stuff and repost it. And some of the stuff you see now, you go, oh.
But it's not just that. I mean, you could say the same thing about The Simpsons. Or,
Oh, yeah, The Simpsons is a big one, I find. Like, and Futurama sort of push a Family Guy sense to always push the barrier. But like,
you don't realise you
got Rick and Morty now, but Rick and Morty's awesome. So like, but like, you look at like The Simpsons in particular, some of the jokes have aged really badly, and it doesn't shock you, but you go, oh, I don't know if we've matured as a society or the cartoons haven't kept up. Like, there's that sort of writing thing, trying to get the shock factor too. They're just trying to always.
I mean, I think it's a little from everything. You know? I think it's hard to turn a ship like The Simpsons quickly. You know what I mean? Like, but they have turned and they have adapted and they've been called out on both white people voice acting African Americans or
I had no idea. I literally had no idea for a long time until it gets pointed out to you and you're like, oh.
But again, when it started, that wasn't a lesson that had been learned yet, but it has been now, and people are addressing it. And I look at like there's still some sketches that I'm proud of and that get laughs that aren't 100% okay. Would I write them now? No, I wouldn't. Right, but 20 years ago, I wrote it, and it was a different time.
Yeah, it was, and the world's changing so rapidly too.
And so it's keeping up with that is always part of the battle when you're a creator, as you guys know. Like you've got to keep not ahead of the wave, but at the crest of it at least. And when you're writing and creating, having that idea of all right, punching up, what can we comment on that needs comedy has always been a thing where you can educate as well as make people laugh, right? And I feel like the worst comedians are ones that are punching down at easy targets for easy laughs, and there's always going to be those
have
comedians.
That shock factor one that like they think it produces tickets to shock people, you know, like, and I understand that if you want to go for the cheap shots, I totally get it. That's your thing. But I don't think it's enjoyable now. Like, there's been a few things, Caroline, I've watched recently that's relatively new, and you go, oh, like, and I don't know if it's because we've matured or I just find it like, why would you say that now? Like, and I think being a comedian or being an actor or being a business on social media, there's so much that you have to think before you take a photo, think before you put something out. Like, I've had a few instances on Twitch where I've had to delete some comments because I'm like, man, you can't, like, or even we get emails back from certain customers and the stuff they say, like, with Lego announced a Queer Eye Lego set, which is awesome. We sell them and it's a good set. But some of the things that people email back to you, you're just like, oh, you think that way? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just,
and everyone has a smartphone everywhere they are.
Yes.
So Rick could be at the cinema just about to put popcorn in his mouth.
Oh, dude, I have some questionable photos from customers, like, back when, the world was normal, taking photos in shots where, how you're eating with a mate and you're not, like, no one looks at themselves when they're eating, so you're like...
Yeah.
And there's photos of me, like...
Well, that was me in any food court anywhere. People would just be there with their phones, and I tell you what, people, if you're trying to take a sneaky photo of someone... They know.
That's all right.
Because you doing this is the least subtle thing you can do. Probably the most like kind of people kind of very slowly as if they're.
But
just
right? Like,
looking, but
we get it when the stores like open. Obviously, we get it as well. Like and I'm like, you can talk to me. It's fine. Yeah. Like I'm not a big deal. But but when I'm with Brickman and stuff, it would happen like crazy. Yeah. And you'd be like, dude, how do you put up with it? He's like...
It's part of the deal now.
It's just the deal, right? As long as you don't, like, someone doesn't bring camera phone into the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, right?
And that's the thing. You just got to be, careful. It's not that we're going around saying the wrong thing all the time or anything like that. But there are cameras everywhere. And
that's exactly right.
And like I get it much less than I was when I was on TV all the time. But I still get it. And it still surprises me when people are excited to see me. I'm just a guy who grew up in St Albans. And, I'm a Westie from way back. And, I like drama, which was not the thing that you like when you grow up in the western suburbs of Melbourne. It's not that I like drama. I like making people laugh.
Yeah, you're good at it.
You did, didn't you, at school? Who was the class clown?
Yeah,
Caroline's the one that's been doing all the stalking.
No.
It's picking up all the info so we know, because it's also good to see the older stuff and to pay attention, because you forget, so much goes on in the world. You forget. So now,
things. Sitting right here with me, who is the teacher, that's my other gig that I do. I have 2 ex-class clowns.
I don't know what you're talking about. Well,
but
I've read all those. I've read all those high school reports.
Yeah.
And,
it was fairly solid class clown territory. It's much to my parents' chagrin. My parents were very blue collar, hairdresser, prison guard, mechanic kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so to have their kid who's growing up out west come and say, I think I want to do drama. And I got kicked out of 4 different schools.
Wow.
Right, for fighting and stuff like that because I couldn't focus on stuff, but I'd make people laugh. And then finally I got admitted to a school where they had drama. And I did drama there, and I was just good at it. I was good at making people laugh. And it was the first time I'd been good at something without having to really try.
Yeah.
Go on, give credit to the school.
It was Kielba Secondary College, and there are 2 teachers who I still see. 3.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yep.
3 teachers who I still see to this day who changed my life. Vince Perry, David Weeding, and Peter Bromley. We catch up once a year.
That's so good,
me
man.
and a couple of other of the students from that year. And one of them was brave enough to say, we will work for you here, but we think we need more. And they literally drove me in their car on their personal time to St. Martin's Youth Arts Centre. And I started this was my first drama classes outside of school. And I got embraced by St. Martin's. I ended up on the board, the student representative on the board there.
It's amazing.
Started doing improv there. And improv is my other career now.
Yeah.
Improv is what keeps me touring outside of TV.
There's a link I'm going to put in later of a skit that you and Jimmy did together about going on a date with your girlfriend's dad.
Yes.
That's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And I think everybody needs to see that. More people need to watch that.
Yeah, that's a great show.
That is one of the best.
You got your little hat on. You're the dad, and Jimmy's.
It's just hilarious.
Oh man!
Oh god, you guys are so funny together. It's just so good.
Jimmy and I met a long time ago. I went across to WA. We met at a corporate gig. One of the things I was talking to you about before. And we just clicked like that. And when he came over to Melbourne, we've been peas in a pod since. And,
Jimmy's good value.
He's a great man. I love him. 2 pieces. And we've been lucky enough to create a bunch of shows together, to improvise together for long part of our lives. And, when you've got that trust on stage with someone, because there's so much trust you need for comedy to land, that, when that you've got to have it in life as well.
Well, you have to have that. It's like the perfect duo, right? So you can work well together without annoying each other.
And you've got to you've got to take the space, but also socially we hang out a lot as well.
Yeah.
I always get alarmed and surprised by the fact that Penn and Teller,
they don't like each other.
They don't talk to each other off stage.
Yeah, no, we've met them. Fortunately, 2 or 3 years ago, we met them. We went and saw their stage show, and afterwards they take photos and stuff. Yeah. But one of my best mates from America, Will, shout out to Will from Brick Arms, he's like a big fan, and we waited and got photos. It was probably one of the best experiences. They were generally nice, but when you read that they don't even speak to each other, you go, huh. But I guess one of them doesn't do talking anyway.
Yeah. So they work very well
together. They do work very well together. It's amazing. And so I'm lucky that I do get to hang out with Jimmy, and I do get to we do get to play a lot, and I was the best man at his wedding, and it's been a great journey, and I look forward to keep creating with Jimmy. Jimmy and I are working on stuff at the moment, so
we'll play some video games again later.
And you often jump into a pirate ship on Sea of Thieves and jump onto a stream, and Rick will jump on with you and you play.
Yeah, Back for Blood at the
moment. Yeah, Back for Blood. Sea of Thieves. Yep. What else did we play? Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah, there's a few games we played.
Yeah, I'm ready to jump back into Sea of Thieves for a bit. I need some calm time.
Oh, that game, like Back for Blood, is brutal, man.
It's
like
so crazy.
It makes me like just like every time I jump off, I'm having to play Far Cry to calm me down. That's how you know. That's how you know it's a bad game. Is that you're playing Far Cry to calm yourself down. But yeah, well, I just wanted to say a big thanks for joining us today. It's awesome. It's amazing. Anytime. Look forward to playing more video games with you. Probably later this evening. We'll probably play some video games. Indeed. Convince Jimmy, the old man, to get out of bed and play video games. But anyway, thank you so much, Jason.
No worries, Rick. Thank you.
We'll put the link to all Jason's stuff down below so you can buy his book. Support Jason. Jason's an amazing dude. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.